Let's do a self-exploration on the three planes. Let's attempt to explore in which plane does knowing of tasting happen. For this self-exploration, you will need a fruit. Let's take the stand of an Advaitin at the Srishti Drishti Vad level. Creation precedes consciousness level. There is duality at this level. Let's see how an Advaitin moves from duality to non-duality. Taste your fruit. A fruit is a so-called gross object. It exists in the gross plane, the plane of the senses. This means that it exists in time and space. The fruit has length, width, and height. This is the space aspect. The fruit is perishable, thus time-bound. This is the time aspect. The plane of the senses is bound by time and space. The fruit that exists in the plane of the senses is bound by time and space. Ask yourself, what aspect within me is experiencing the flavor of the fruit? The fruit exists in a plane bound by space and time. The sense organ called the tongue exists at the same plane as the fruit. But the sense organ called the tongue is not conscious. That which is not conscious cannot know. The tongue cannot know the flavor of the fruit. Therefore, the tongue is not the one that is experiencing or knowing the fruit. Then, what is experiencing or knowing the flavor of the fruit? Is it the mind? The mind exists in a plane bound only by time. The fruit exists on a plane bound by time and space. The plane of the mind is different from the plane of the fruit. The mind can never come down to the plane of the senses to know the gross object called fruit or its flavor. Therefore, the mind is not the one that is experiencing or knowing the fruit. Then who is experiencing this flavor? Is it the witness consciousness? The I principle or the I sense or witness consciousness cannot come down to the level of the mind to witness thoughts. Neither can it come down to the plane of the senses to experience objects like the flavor of the fruit. The witness is not bound by time nor by space. It is beyond time and space. The mind exists at a plane which is bound by time. The gross object, called the fruit, exists on a plane that is limited by time and space. These are three different planes. Therefore, the witness is not the one that is experiencing or knowing the flavor of the fruit. Then where does experiencing or knowing or understanding of the flavor happen? In our own personal experiential recognition, it is clear that there is no proof of the existence of gross objects. In this case, there is no proof of the existence of the fruit. There is only the proof of the existence of perception of taste. And we know that perception is nothing but thought, a tangible thought. An Advaitin who has reached the level of Drishti Srishti Vada, consciousness precedes creation level, he knows that he is just projecting a tangible thought that can be seen, heard, smelled, tasted, and touched. He knows that he projects a tangible thought like a hologram, except that this can be heard, smelled, tasted, and touched in addition to being seen. Examine your fruit carefully. Doesn't it seem like a hologram that can be smelled, tasted, touched in addition to being seen? This is the true meaning of an inside-out perception, an inside-out tangible thought. A tangible thought has been labeled as the gross object called fruit and the fruit's flavor. Examine the flavor thought. Does this flavor thought actually hold a gross object called the fruit in it? No. Does this flavor thought actually hold a subtle object called the fruit thought in it? No. One thought cannot exist in another thought. Thought is objectless. There is neither the gross object nor the subtle object existing in thought. An objectless thought is no thought at all. Objectlessness is the definition of pure consciousness. So we have seen that the gross object called fruit does not exist. The perception of taste is nothing but a tangible thought. And a thought does not exist. Then what is it that is known? The Advaitin who reaches the Ajatavada level recognizes that the flavor which is supposed to have been perceived loses its form and becomes tasting itself. Flavor is nothing but tasting. Tasting is nothing else but knowing. When the so-called object of taste comes into the plane of knowledge, it loses its objectivity and becomes knowledge itself. It becomes one with the knower. Therefore, the knower, the known, and knowledge are nothing but a single field of knowingness. Knowingness is consciousness. So, what is consciousness knowing? Consciousness is knowing itself. Consciousness is knowing reality. Knowing is always directed to the reality. The object of knowledge is always the reality, if the reality can ever be called an object. Therefore, it is only the reality that is known in every case. You are consciousness, and what you are tasting is nothing but consciousness. There is in effect only consciousness. Consciousness is knowing consciousness. That is the meaning of absolute reality, where there is only a single screen or a single ocean of light of consciousness. In that, the knower, the known, and knowledge are nothing but a single field of oneness. The witness, the mind, the body, and the world are all nothing but the single light of consciousness. There is no two. This is the absolute reality. The absolute is ajata, unborn and undying. It simply is. It simply is. It simply is.